What's going down, people? This is the Black Trekker. Thank you for taking time out your morning, afternoon, or evening to come in and kick it with me for a few ticks. Now, I got another outstanding video that I watched of Star Trek Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 21. Now, I know a lot of people give Star Trek Next Generation first and second season a lot of flack for not being particularly good. Well, I disagree. After watching something over and over again, and then watching it from the lens and the perspective of a content creator, I have to say this episode was actually quite good. Now, the name of the episode is called Symbiosis. Now, symbiosis, by a literal definition, means a relationship between two organisms that mutually benefit from each other. So, with that being said, you would think when you hear that word in your mind that is correlated to a mutually beneficial relationship. But as I break it down for you, you'll be able to make a determination if that's accurate or if that's a fallacy. All right, so this is what occurs. The Enterprise D is going into a new star system. Now, it's new because of the sense that nobody from the 24th century has explored this part of space. Well, according to data, the last time a Federation starship was in that area was like 200 years ago. So it is considered a new territory. And also the information is kind of sketchy. They don't know much about the inhabitants of the said civilization. So what happens is that there's a freighter. They're always encountering freighters. There's a freighter that has a degraded orbit, and it's about to fall into this planet. Now, the sun of this particular star system is giving off immense amounts of radiation for whatever reason. And they are trying to be able to help them. So they open up, natural hailing frequencies. And they say, this is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of Starship Enterprise, yada, yada, yada. Unfortunately, it's a lot of signal degradation, and it's really difficult to communicate. So the gentleman who's the captain of the ship, his name is Tujon. Tujon is an interesting person. He's a very special type of character. And the reason why I say that is because he doesn't seem to be really coherent about what's going on in terms of with his ship. And the dialogue between him and Captain Picard is kind of like Tujon doesn't really know what he's doing. It's almost equivalent to like a pack lead, where the pack leads are very, very interested in acquiring stuff, but they are not technically savvy with their own technology. And so with that being said, it's kind of like that same situation. Tujon knows how to pilot the vessel and land the vessel and pick up whatever he's picking up and fly and go to the other planet. But when it actually is in correlation to actually fixing something, oh no, Tujon don't know nothing. And he's like, well, Commander Riker was like, well, can you interface with the ship? And so they interfaced the ship with Lieutenant Commander Data, and Lieutenant Commander Data was able to find out that it was some kind of magnetic coil that they needed to be able to fix. Unfortunately, Tujon doesn't know how to, replicate or duplicate the magnetic coil. So with that being said, the Enterprise was like, okay, well, we can send you one over. We can beam it over to you. And then Tujon was like, okay, well, thank you. Appreciate that. But then he was like, well, how do we install it? Or like, how do we use it? And so Picard comes back over to Riker and is like, wow, these people don't know like the basic functions of their ships. And then Picard turned back to the view screen and said, hey, he was like, Tujon, how long you been captain of this ship? And he was like, 7 years. And it's like, what? 7 years? And you don't even know how to run the simplest thing on your ship? And I have to admit that Picard back in season 1 and season 2, he wasn't as I would say, understanding. He was kind of arrogant, over the top, and he had a superiority complex. So when he hears these people not being able to run their own ship, he's kind of like baffled. But nonetheless, this is what happens. So Commander Riker's like, listen, I ought to get over there. Now, at the time, head of security, Tasha Yar, was like, nah, we can't risk it. We don't know what's over there. And then also the orbit is decaying. But Riker, he outranks her. So Riker was like, I'm going to go over there with a security team. So it was him, Worf, Data. They went over there. And what happened was ultimately the ship was in too much bad damage, so they couldn't save the vessel. So they beamed the cargo and they also beam Tujon, and then they bring the lady named Strela, who's from the opposite planet. Now, the thing about it is that you have to remember is that it says Symbiosis in the beginning of the episode. That's the name. But what happens is that upon going into the briefing room, Picard comes in and tells him, hey, listen, we're sorry we couldn't save your ship. And Tujon was like, nah, it's all good. We got 2 other ships. They're very important to us. They're not really working well. Is it possible that you can help us fix them? Now, of course, Picard turns to Data and is like, Data, can we fix their ships? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. The technology is primitive. Of course we can fix it. All right, great. But then the opposing party, Strela, was like, nah, first we need to get payment. And they're like, payment? What you talking about payment? So what happens is that Picard's like, listen, we ain't got nothing to do with y'all payment situation. We can drop you off and your cargo to another planet, and we can do it like that. Unfortunately, Tujon, they don't got the money because the money and everything was on the ship. And now that the ship is destroyed, they can't get the medication. And that's what the product was. Supposedly medication. So I'm not going to give you too much detail right now, but this is what occurred. So they went to the cargo hold. Well, actually, before that, what happened was that they were going back and forth, and then finally they agreed to go to the cargo hold because Picard was looking at the people that were the actual owners of the property and was like, look, you're not going to give the medicine to these people? They're suffering. Tujon's colleague was in bad situation. He was like kind of like a junkie, just like he was having problems, withdrawals, all that. So what occurred was that they finally agreed to allow them to get a sample of the actual product, the medication. So they go down to the cargo hold, and then what happens is that Picard and there's also Dr. Crusher there. And Dr. Crusher is looking at the reactions because usually as a medical personnel, she's supposed to evaluate the safety of the crew and also the health of the crew whenever, new alien species come on the ship. So anyway, what happens is that she's analyzed it, and they give her they give him I would say it's equivalent to an aspirin size of the product. And then they put it into a machine. He opens his palm up. The machine, I guess, injects it in his bloodstream. And then immediately he just breathes deeply. And I mean, all is well in the world. And he feels completely good to go all around. And then you can see in the eyes of Dr. Beverly Crusher that she knows something ain't right. And she knows that it looks quite familiar. But, again, this is an alien race. You don't know the society. You don't know the norms. Anyway, so then after that's taken care of, they are taking Tujon in transit to his home planet. They get a communique from his home planet. It's one of the representatives, one of the leaders of the planet. And he's like, hey, where's the medication? Where is the product? Where's your ship? And they explained the situation. The ship got destroyed. And they were like, well, do you still have the product? And it's like, yeah. And he's like, you got to bring it. I mean, the way the guy who's a representative, the leader of Tujon's planet he looked at like it was bad. And I mean, he was in a position of authority. So he was very, apprehensive and stressed out. And he was like, well, you need to bring it. There are people dying over here. There are people that are sick. And so when I get the graphics, I'm going to be able to show y'all what I mean by that. And he's like, you need to get back here as soon as possible. So the lady from the owners of the actual property saw this. And unfortunately, they're like, listen, we're going to get there as soon as we can. And so Tujon is trying to negotiate with Picard, like, listen, we already paid for it. We need to go ahead and get the property. And all you got to do is beam us down to our home planet. So what happened was that Picard like, listen, we're not involved. We're Starfleet. All we could do is take you to your planet, beam you down, and this. So Tujon got upset and he grabbed Riker. Now, this was unknown to the crew of the Enterprise, but apparently these aliens have some kind of like kinetic wielding power where they can release electric impulses and shocks. Because what happens is that he touches Riker's chest, and Riker's kind of like this. He's like stunned, and all you see like is a glow on his chest, and it's something that's like preventing him from moving. He's kind of like in shock, and Tujon is basically saying like, look, if you don't take us to the planet, I'm gonna kill him. And Picard's like, listen, you can kill him, but you won't make it back to your planet because you're gonna be in detention for the rest of your life. So Tujon eventually, recognizes that he ain't in a good position. And again, the Argalians, the people that actually own the actual medicine, are just looking at them and like, this is typical behavior. Because I could already see that the Lady Strela and the Argalians in general are kind of like arrogant and smug, kind of like how Picard kind of was in season 1 and 2. They already had a higher level of the relationship. The people, Tujon's people, were getting the short end of the stick, and the Argalians was living high on the hog, if you understand, if you catch my drift. So with that being said, they were getting treated disrespectfully. So he finally let them go. Riker drops to the ground. They take Riker to sickbay to get recovered and to get healed. And so then what happens is that the disagreement continues. But then eventually Dr. Crusher gets back to Picard, one, to let him know that Riker's going to be fine, but then also to say that this is a narcotic. This is not a medicine. At one time, far in the past, it was a medicine that the Argalians was able to heal themselves from. But they realized that the people that lived on the other planet, the ones that were technologically less advanced, didn't know this. So what they did was they created a relationship where they essentially were drug dealers. So the Argalians are drug dealers, and Tujon's peoples are the addicts. Now, Captain Picard has a problem. Because Captain Picard is like, they are exploiting these people. Now, in the beginning, like I said to you, this is supposed to be a symbiotic relationship, symbiosis. However, is it really symbiotic now? When you look at it from the perspective of they're being manipulated, they're being lied to, they're being cheated in some way? Because all of the resources of Tujon's planet are going to paying the Argalians. And they sitting back, relaxing, living high on a hog. So this episode is really about exploitation. And like I always say, Star Trek teaches lessons about life in general, especially the next generation. So what occurs is that the Argalians is like, listen, we are not going to give this away for free. No way, no how. But Picard is like, listen, I know what you guys are doing. And we've already determined that this is a narcotic. This is a drug. This has absolutely nothing to do with healing these people. Only thing it does is abate the symptoms for a little bit. And then, like drug addicts, they're right back asking you again and again for more and more shipments. You've been manipulating these people for centuries. And they don't lie to Picard. They're like, okay. Because it's just Picard and Argalians. And they're just talking like, look, yeah, we're aware of that. But you're not going to do anything about it because you're the Federation. And the Federation has created a reputation of being the good guys and not interfering whatsoever. So with that being said, they're not going to interfere. Federation ain't going to do nothing. Federation is going to make a protest, but they don't got diplomatic relations with these people. So their protesters are going to go on deaf ear like, shut up, we don't know you. So with that being said, unfortunately, the Federation don't got no leg to stand on. So what happens is that Picard makes a decision which I kind of feel like it violates the Prime Directive in a way, but in the sense that Picard doesn't let them take the medication back. They beam down to the planet. No. That's not true. That's not what happened. Picard allows them to take the medication down to the planet. But when they don't have any components to fix the other two ships because Picard's like, listen, we have to do what we said we were going to do. We're going to take you to the planet so that you can be able to give the medication to your people. However, we're not going to help you repair your ships. And if we don't help you repair your ships, then this symbiotic relationship is going to end unless the people that actually own the actual drug create the ships, which they didn't want to do. That's labor. That's work. They don't want to do that. That's beneath them. So I feel that in a way, he kind of skated the line of breaking the Prime Directive, but he did the most logical thing when it comes to a situation like that. Now, my question to you is this. Was their relationship actually symbiotic? You should go back and actually watch the episode. It's far more in depth than what I'm explaining to you in 16 something minutes. But go back and watch the episode and ask yourself, was it really a symbiotic relationship? And then in the comment section, tell me what you think from your perspective. Because I think that it was exploitation. I think that they were being used for centuries. And I think that it would have continued on if Picard didn't have a heart and was like, nah, I'm not going to help you fix your ships. Because quite frankly, the inhabitants of that planet are too incompetent that they shouldn't even be addicts. They can't afford to be addicts. Put it like that. And then the other planet, they just downright dirty. And they have not advanced in themselves because if you have a market and you want to be able to still take advantage of said market, you would have developed the spaceships so that you could have got to their planet even if they ships broke down. Like here you go. And then in that particular situation, in that particular stance, it would have been nothing that the Federation could have said because it's a legal, rational relationship. They have the spacecraft to get the product to the planet, but now they don't. So, what do you think of Picard's actions? Anyway, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, live long and prosper.